In a major breakthrough in the race to cure COVID, pharmaceutical giant Pfizer has revealed that the COVID-19 vaccine in phase 3 trials has shown 90% efficacy. The US company and the German biotech firm BioNTech, and they're working together on the specific vaccine and conducting the trials together, have said now that their coronavirus vaccine was effective in preventing COVID-19 amongst those without evidence of prior infections. I just want to quickly first take you through some of the highlights from a very detailed statement that they have put out. Of course, experts will be watching out for a lot more information data in the coming days about this trial. But effectively, what these pharma giants are saying is that the vaccine has shown over 90% effectiveness in preventing COVID amongst those who previously had not been exposed to this infection. The mRNA-based vaccine demonstrated efficacy, and it was effective on those without prior infection. Now, they've also said that they're still waiting for some more details. They're waiting to see, the impact on those volunteers for a longer period of time before they go ahead and apply with the US FDA for emergency use. And this is likely to be by third week of November. They expect to produce about 50 million doses this year and then produce about 1.3 billion doses in 2021. The pharmaceutical major Pfizer is also calling it a first but critical step for safe COVID vaccine, a critical milestone in vaccine development. So this is big news. Now, we have to keep in mind there can always be a slip between the cup and the lip. But how far along are we then? Will we have a vaccine by this year end? That's the big question that I want to ask. And I've got an expert, Dr. Shahid Jameel, Director for Trivedi School of Biosciences at Ashoka University, joining us right now. Dr. Jameel, thank you for speaking with us. Basis what Pfizer has announced right now, can you help us simplify it for our viewers? What does it mean?
So what they have done is to declare the interim results from the phase 3 trial. And the interim result means that they have looked at 7-day follow-up after the second vaccination dose. And in that period, they have found that 94 people out of almost 39,000 people who got the second dose got infected. And when the code was broken and they have looked at the placebo and the vaccine groups, based on that, they say it's 90% efficacy. They have not actually released the numbers on how many people in the vaccine group got infected, how many in the placebo group. But if you work backwards, you find that about 85 persons in the placebo group must have gotten infected, and 9 in the vaccine group got infected. So this is good news, but as you just said, there is much more to it. And the thing that we have to understand is that in India, this vaccine is unlikely to make a big impact simply because the storage conditions for this vaccine are that it has to be kept frozen at minus 94 degrees centigrade, which is a very, very low temperature. And once the vial is thawed, it can only be kept in the refrigerator for up to 2 days. So it poses immense cold chain challenges, something that in India we're not really equipped to handle. Even most of the developed countries may not be able to handle this sort of challenge where you can take a vaccine from the site of manufacture to the site of delivery at minus 94 degrees centigrade.
Oh, that's a very important point, Dr. Jalil, that you have highlighted. This challenge, and we've often otherwise also spoken about the logistical cold storage challenge for whatever kind of vaccine comes. But minus 90-degree temperature, and then the urgency to use it within a couple of days will pose a big challenge. Also, the fact that Pfizer is using 2 shots. So it's a dual injection shot vaccine,
right,
with a time period of about 21 days is what they have attempted right now. But I am going to go back to a very simple question. and from a common man's viewpoint, to say that there has been 90% efficacy, which means there is a possibility that 10% people who got the vaccine still ended up getting infected.
Right.
Is this a normal number?
Most vaccines do not prevent infection. Most vaccines prevent disease. So even most successful vaccines, you'll find that they won't prevent infection. So this is fine. But the key thing to see in this trial is, was the disease any different between people in the placebo group versus people in the vaccine group? So for example, if those in the vaccine group, if they got infected and they remained asymptomatic or had very mild disease, whereas those in the placebo group got moderate to severe disease, then we can really say that the vaccine attenuates disease. And that would be the real good thing to happen.
And what is it that Pfizer is now waiting to see? Because they say that they're not going to immediately apply for emergency use with the US FDA. So what are they expecting to see in the next 10 days?
Well, they can't apply because as per US FDA rules, you need at least 2 months of safety data from your last injection uh, to be able to apply for emergency use approval. The European Medicine Agency requires 70 days, so it's a little more than US FDA. So even if they want to do it, they can't, because as per FDA rules, emergency use approval can only be given after 2 months. And that's what Pfizer is shooting for, the third week of November to break the code.
All right. And my last question to you, Dr. Jameel, and you spoke a little bit about this earlier as well, but even if, let's say, Pfizer says that, okay, this is good to go, they get the approval in US by the US FDA, what is the process for India? How are we going to treat this? Will we have our own trials for the same vaccine, our own approvals? How will it work?
Well, the Indian regulator can do two things. The Indian regulator can say, I have looked at the data of the phase 3 trial in the US. I am convinced that there was enough diversity in the population that was on which the vaccine was tried, and I'm satisfied that this vaccine can be tried in India. The other thing that the regulator may say is that fine, a large trial was done, but I would like to see a bridge trial being done in India where the vaccine should be tried on a small number of patients, not thousands, but maybe hundreds, to ensure that in the genetic background of the Indian population, the vaccine works just as well. So it depends entirely on the regulator.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Jameel. That really, helped us understand where we stand and what we should be looking forward to. There's been so much of such a big reaction in United States that one was confused about how seriously we should be taking it and what we need to watch out for. So I appreciate you joining us and really taking our queries. So there you go, viewers. You've heard it from Dr. Shahid Jameel that first, of course, we have to see in the United States what finally gets applied for and if it gets approval. Secondly, it's going to be very difficult for not just India, but even many developed countries to store and transport and then use this vaccine because of the conditions it requires for storage and even to be given to people. And thirdly, of course, there will be a long process even for approvals and for checks and balances in our own country. And don't forget the challenge of manufacturing it at such a large level for the entire world. But it is nevertheless a step closer in a hunt for a COVID vaccine. We wait and watch what happens next. Thank you for joining us.